And welcome, everybody. It's Chris Salcedo Show worldwide. Glad you made it tonight. Now, look, we're starting off tonight with a pair. I have a devastatingly bad cold. I can't get through. If I had to go away all of a sudden, away from it means I'm going to go aside and excuse myself and blow my nose. It's that bad. Whatever it is, don't you catch it. And Mary is what, 9 days away from having a child?
Just a few days, actually, just 3 more days.
Three more days. Yeah. Good grief. Well, so we are a pair, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to try to get you the day's news as best we can. And, well, whatever you happen to be writing about this week too, Mary, which I'm very curious to, because we haven't visited with you in a couple of weeks. Very interested to hear what you have to say. But before we get into all of that, it was breaking news. Earlier today, the President of the United States declared the city of Jerusalem the official capital of Israel. Did you have any takeaways from that?
No, I think it's fantastic. I think it's a campaign promise, and I'm glad he's keeping it. But it's something that needed to have been done for a long time. I mean, this is not just a matter of current events. This is a matter of historical fact. The capital of Israel is Jerusalem and has been for thousands of years. This is a cultural issue that the Palestinians and others involved in that situation have sort of taken over and laid claim to. I was actually just watching a segment Mark Levin did on his CRTV program that laid out in 5 minutes the history of Israel and Jerusalem and the different cultures that come in there. And it's so amazing to watch the way that the Jews in Jerusalem and Israel have for so long tolerated people of all faiths, of all religions, protected their holy sites, protected the religions and factions that don't agree with them. They've protected them. And what have the Palestinians and what have the Muslims in that situation done in response? They've continued to blow themselves up in front of school children and
or blow up school children.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And seek to destroy the state of Israel. So, I heard Keith Ellison say, was it yesterday, that this would be detrimental to the peace process.
What really? Peace process?
What peace process? Since when is terrorism part of a peace process? Because that's what the other side has to offer. So anyway, to answer your question, I think it's fantastic. I think it's bold. And I think it's something that's long overdue.
Obama promised, Clinton promised, Bush promised, and Donald Trump is doing it.
He is.
And look, there are religious claims, Christianity, of course, to Jerusalem, Judaism to Jerusalem. Those two coexist rather nicely. It's Islam's claim, which comes from a visit that the Prophet Muhammad allegedly made to a holy site there in Jerusalem, spiritually. Apparently he jumped on, and I think it's the name of I'm not a theologian of Islam, and I don't read up much on Islam, but I believe the name of the donkey was Al-Barak, if I'm not mistaken. That took the Prophet Muhammad on a spiritual journey where Muhammad visited the place of Israel under the watchful gaze of the angel Gabriel, the Christian angel Gabriel, and prayed.
Right.
And prayed.
And went through the different layers of heaven, and that's where the mosque that sits on the Temple Mount, isn't that? Where
the Alaska Mosque, I believe is it the Alaska Mosque? I believe that's how you pronounce it, but
the Dome of the Rock or something like that. That's what that signifies exactly, right?
Yeah, and again, ladies and gentlemen, we're giving you the background on why this is going to stir a little bit of a hornet's nest. But as Mary and I were alluding to earlier, there's been no peace anyway. There's been no peace in this region for the last 50 years anyway. You might as well try something a little different. And if you're going to try something different, why not side with your traditional ally and your staunch ally Israel, rather than doing what Obama did, which is stab Israel in the back, which Barack Obama seemed to delight in doing.
Well, right. And the thing is, Jerusalem was never up for debate for Benjamin Netanyahu, for the nation of Israel. It was never up. It was never a bargaining chip. This just solidifies that. This doesn't change the calculus. It doesn't change the debate. It was never up for debate. There was never going to be peace that involved Israel giving Jerusalem away. It wasn't going to happen. Yeah. This simply solidifies that.
You know what? If Bill Clinton, I remember Bill Clinton, he basically told Yasser Arafat back when he was in the White House, gave Yasser Arafat everything he wanted out of the peace process, and Arafat walked away because Arafat just wanted to kill Jews. He didn't want peace; he wanted to kill Jews. So even when he was given everything that he wanted, he walked away. So now Donald Trump, probably recognizing that failure, said, "Well, you know what? Why don't we send a signal that if you don't come to the table and start getting in the peace process, you're going to lose a lot more. You've already lost Jerusalem. It's out of the equation. Now it's the official, as far as the Western world is concerned, it is already the official capital of Israel. You guys better get to the table and start bargaining while you still have bargaining chips left."
No, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And at the end of the day, you're not dealing with people who are willing to negotiate on serious terms. You're dealing with Hamas, whose stated purpose is the destruction of Israel. So it's again, you're not dealing with sane people here. And to put limits, finally, to say enough is enough and draw a line in the sand, I think is refreshingly fantastic. And if you look at Iran, look at North Korea, look at any other terroristic state that we, the world, have capitulated to over the years. When has giving in to those people ever resulted in any gains for freedom, for liberty?
Nope.
It's never happened.
Nope.
So you know what? To your point, go ahead. Draw the line in the sand and say enough's enough. This is where we start our negotiation, right here.
When you give in to terrorism, all you do is invite more terrorism. So that's going on. Last thing I want to talk to you about before we get to your article is we have now had it confirmed that 2 of Bob Mueller's special counsel investigators are actually left-wing biased hacks who hate Donald Trump.
No way.
Who hate Donald Trump and love Hillary Clinton. Most of those who are surrounding Bob Mueller in this so-called investigation, what I believe now is a witch hunt, a fishing expedition, whatever you want to call it. They are proven and demonstrable Democrat donors. But these guys who have made the news in the last couple of days, the Peter Strzok, Pig in a Poke, whatever his name is, Mr. Strzok, he not only oversaw Hillary Clinton's email investigation and changed the wording of James Comey's basically exoneration speech so that she wouldn't be held criminally liable.
Legally liable, exactly.
Yeah. He also was one of the main investigators behind whether or not she did anything illegal and found all this stuff. And now it seems he was more predisposed to burying anything that might have been incriminating to the former Democrat candidate. He also conducted the interrogation of Michael Flynn. He also, this guy was having an affair with a woman inside of the FBI, a lawyer there, and exchanging text messages with her that was decidedly pro-Hillary and anti-Trump. That's one.
Right.
Then there's Weissman, who is a special lieutenant to Bob Mueller, the man of integrity, Bob Mueller. And this guy was firing off emails to Sally Yates, the now former Attorney General, acting Attorney General in the transition period between Jeff Sessions and Barack Obama's administration. And Yates, when she decided to not enforce and defend Donald Trump's lawful travel ban order, an executive order, a lawful order, this guy, Weissman, applauded her, sent her an email saying, "Oh, you're my hero. You're the greatest thing since sliced bread." Well, it turns out the Supreme Court has said that Donald Trump is, had the right to do all of this. And Yates was proven wrong. But these people are not committed investigators, Mary. They're not committed individuals to finding the truth. They're committed Democrats, and they're on their committed partisanship trying to skewer anybody associated with Donald Trump and Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, think about the irony of this, that here these people are supposedly investigating what? Conflict of interest with the Trump campaign and Russians, supposedly. Collusion, conflict of interest. And yet these people are the biggest hypocrites. You want to talk about a conflict of interest? The very people investigating the so-called conflict of interest have conflicts of interest so big themselves that it's not even funny, as you just outlined. How can there be any objectivity in this whole quote-unquote investigation process, which, as you rightly put, is a witch hunt at this point? How can there be any objectivity? There can't be. And frankly, I heard, who was it last night? I heard on the radio, I think it was Joe Pags. He made a great point. He said, and I think it was him. So I don't want to falsely attribute that, but he said it's time for the president to end this, because this is doing nothing but sullying the administration's ability and really hamstringing the administration's ability to do anything for the American people.
You know, not
because
only
this
that,
is nothing more than a
yeah, not only that, it's also time for the Republicans to get off their duffs and say enough is
exactly.
enough. Start backing up your president for a change, for crying out loud. This is,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
goodness
having
sake.
Bob Mueller in charge of a special counsel investigation is like having a flock of chickens be responsible for prosecuting Colonel Sanders, or putting Klingons in charge of the peace process, or putting Hillary Clinton in charge of a
It's the
review on national security. It's
it's
just nonsensical.
it's the proverbial fox guarding the henhouse type deal.
Ta-da.
I mean, it really is.
Yep. All right. But in the time we have left, let's talk about your piece this week.
Well, speaking of Congress, as we were here a minute ago, as you know, one of the longest serving, or I think the longest serving representative, John Conyers, resigned or retired, as he put it, right?
Bye-bye.
Right. Retired and then recommended, wasn't it his son, to fill his shoes? How convenient. But yeah, retired because, of course, the allegations of sexual harassment had just become so loud and so voracious that he couldn't, really couldn't go further. But he's one of many, as you know, the last couple of months, just absolute titans of industry and of politics and media. And oh, excuse me, I apologize.
You went away. Where did you go? There you are. You're back.
There we go. Okay, the screen just acted up on me. But anyway, he's one of many, major titans of industry, media, politics, entertainment that have been sullied by these same claims. And I was thinking about, what is it that all of them, well, I shouldn't say all, 99.99999% of them have in common? What is it? They're all vocally left-wing, not just kind of, vocally left-wing. And it got me thinking, and let me preface this. Of course, I'm not saying that being male and left-wing suddenly, sort of predisposes you to being a sexual deviant. It doesn't. But I'm just making the observation that 99.9% of all of these harassers are, in fact, left-wingers.
Well, if you're godless and you're soulless and you don't believe the rule of law applies to you, and that describes our political opposition, Mary, then maybe you are more predisposed to doing this kind of thing. Don't forget Al Franken. How many Democrats today? 10 or 11 senators, men and women, are now demanding Al Franken resign. Right.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right when it comes to the morality issue that by and large the left doesn't believe in a moral code. We've talked about this before. They don't believe that there is a right or wrong. So really, frankly, as I put in one of my previous articles, why should we be surprised to see the Harvey Weinsteins of the world running around, abusing women, because there are no standards, and they celebrate that. But, so I was thinking about, what are the claims that routinely get lobbed against the American right, conservatives and Republicans, whether it's in a campaign or just as a matter of course in conversation? What are the claims? That we are waging a war on women, that we are waging class warfare, and that we are waging a war on minorities, that we're racist. And I thought, just humor me for a second here, people. If liberals are such hypocrites when it comes to the issue of the war on women, why should we trust them? Why should they be, well, not that we trust them, but why should they be the moral authority on race and on issues of poverty either? Because the fact of the matter is, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the old Salcedo Show axiom is true here, that often progressives and liberals assign to other people qualities that they themselves have in abundance. And usually it's a deflection mechanism, because I am holier than thou. The Republicans, they're conducting the war on women, when it's in actuality the Democrats who are doing that, and they give themselves cover. They throw up the smoke screen, if you will.
Right. It's not Republicans who are waging a war on women because we say that, golly, you should pay for your own birth control, or gee whiz, I don't believe in abortion. It's liberals that are actually violating women, like literally violating women. They're waging the war on women, okay? It's not Republicans who are running around treating minorities like mindless toddlers who cannot make any move on their own without the helping hand of their largely white, largely rich politician friends in Washington, okay? It's not Republicans who are running around refusing to accept the fact that their policies in the inner cities have impoverished the African American, the Hispanic communities. And yet there they stand in their $12,000 Armani suits preaching about the minimum wage and what horrible people Republicans are for suggesting that things like the minimum wage ought not be your goal in life.
Well, I got about 20 seconds before we got to hit the break here. So give me the name of your piece.
Leftists are hypocrites on sexual harassment. Why should we trust them on race and poverty? And I will tweet that out after the show.
All right, very well. Mary Ramirez, everybody. She's about ready to have a baby any minute now, so she won't be on the show for a couple of weeks while she gets to mothering. So, Merry Christmas, lady. Glad you made it here, and we'll talk to you most likely in the new year.
Merry Christmas, and thank you as always, Chris.
All right, folks, be right back. Chris Salcedo Show worldwide on the Vida Television Network. Welcome back, everybody. The Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the Vida Television Network. Joined now by Jerry Rogers, Vice President at the Institute for Liberty. Rogers is the founder of Capital Allies and the 6 Degrees Project, an independent, nonpartisan effort that promotes entrepreneurship, economic growth, and free enterprise. Free enterprise, ladies and gentlemen, that is the fourth economic system that doesn't get talked about very much. In descending order, free enterprise, capitalism, socialism, communism, as far as your liberty-loving Latino here is concerned. Jerry, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Oh, this is great fun. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You and I are going to be talking taxes, and let's start off with the nuts and the bolts. We've got 2 competing bills, both Republican-generated, one House bill, one Senate bill that are going to go to conference. Tell me which one you like the best and why.
I like bits and pieces of each one, which is why the conference committee is going to be so important, because on the Senate side, I like that they got rid of several corporate loopholes, crony pieces that are in our tax system that they take out. I'll give you one for instance. Right now, if you are a foreign headquartered life insurance company, you get certain tax breaks, loopholes that American headquartered companies do not get. The Senate bill gets rid of such loopholes, which I like, because if you want to bring the rate down and you want to do these other reforms, well, you have to get rid of the loopholes. And the Senate bill gets rid of these corporate crony loopholes. Like you said, I'm a free enterprise guy. I'm not a crony corporatist. And I want to bring rates down. I want to allow companies to keep more of what they earn to reinvest. But I don't think government should pick winners and losers.
Yeah, I agree. I have favored the House bill, and I'll tell you why. Because the simplification aspect of the House bill, taking us from 7 tax brackets down to 4.
Sure.
The getting rid of all, doubling the standard deduction, not doubling, but increasing the child tax credit. It all seems to be centered on the individual on the House side, whereas the Senate side keeps the complicated 7 brackets and nitpicks you here and there, and it seems to be very DC centered. Am I off base here?
No, you're absolutely right. But this is why the real work begins now, because I know Christmas is coming, so maybe there'd be a Christmas miracle. Why not have the majority of the House individual tax reforms coupled with the Senate's corporate tax reforms, and then all of a sudden you get a bill that is it's a B. All of a sudden it becomes a B plus an A. The bottom line is that on the corporate side, bringing it down from 35 to 20%, I think is important. I think having corporations keep more of what they earn to reinvest in the economy, but also we talked about this off air. It has to go with the combination of the immediate expensing. That will allow corporations to reinvest immediately, right away, into new plants, new equipment, etc., which will allow for hiring of new people. You have new workers, higher wages. New workers means more consumers, and more consumers investing in the economy is how we're going to see 3%, 3.5%, 4% growth moving forward. But I agree with you. It'd be great if the corporate side, the Senate bill, is matched up with the majority of what's in the House on the individual side, and we'll see a really good piece of legislation.
Jerry Rogers, my guest right now, folks, Vice President at the Institute for Liberty. Now, you mentioned that the Senate side has the corporate the corporate angle on this right. However, they do delay implementation until 2019, and the House implements their reforms right away. A little concerned about the timing on the Senate side, are you?
Oh, yes. You cannot delay to 2019. And I think, again, in the conference report, in the conference committee, they're going to have to work that out. Well, and also coupled with this, you said DC centric, and you're absolutely right. We have all these phase in, phase outs. We have 10 years down the road, we have cutoffs, et cetera, et cetera. All of that should be done away with. And the only reason why we have these phase outs, phase ins, et cetera, is because they're trying to squeeze all this into or the Senate did into the Byrd rule, the reconciliation rules. And, the Senate should have just overruled the parliamentarian. Because remember, part of the problem here, or the challenge, is it can't bust the deficit more than 1.5 trillion.
Right.
And as you know, they don't dynamic score in D.C. And so they're looking for pay-fors. Now, I disagree with how they do the economic forecasting. The fact of the matter is, we know from the Reagan tax cuts, we know from the Kennedy tax cuts, that if you allow Americans and American companies to keep more of what they earn, they become better consumers and they invest in the economy, and tax proceeds go up. I don't believe this bill will blow up the deficit. And frankly, 1.4 trillion out of a $10 trillion deficit over 10 years really isn't a lot of money. It's almost a rounding error. Yeah. And I think I think Schumer and some others are hypocritical, because what have they done about the $82 trillion deficits in Medicare and Social Security? Nothing. But I think, just to go back to your original question, a lot of these phase in, phase outs has to do with the arbitrary parliamentarian rules that they had to get this bill passed.
Yeah, and about Schumer's hypocrisy, he didn't caterwaul. You talked about the unfunded liabilities and the entitlement programs, but over the last 8 years, Barack Obama added $9.4 trillion to the national debt, and nobody batted an eyelash in Chuck Schumer's camp. You mentioned something, by the way, Jerry Rogers, our guest right now, vice president at the Institute for Liberty. You mentioned a phrase that really gets my ire up, and it is this idea of pay-fors.
Oh, my goodness.
When we're talking taxes and governance, is the one phrase that really angers me, because it is the assumption that we the people must go groveling and begging at the feet of our overlords and overseers in Washington, D.C., for tax breaks, so long as we can pay for it in some other way. Look, when does government start paying? When does government start doing without? When does government start tightening its belt? When do we start getting rid of all these nonsensical entitlement programs that aren't working, or paring them down, starting to actually pay attention to the drivers of our debt and the waste of our taxpayers' money, rather than saying, oh, well, we can't do any of that. That's too much hard work. The idea of paying for tax cuts is patently offensive.
It is. I like what you said. It is offensive. Members of Congress are telling you, me, and the entrepreneur and the business owner that we somehow have to justify keeping more of what we earn. And you know what? Nothing's stopping. And Democrats aren't the only ones at fault here, because Senator Corker, Republican, voted against this bill. Yeah. And he said the reason is it adds money to the deficit. Well, Senator Corker, you've been in the Congress now for many, many years. Where is your legislation to deal with the $82 trillion deficit in Medicare and Social Security? You never did it. Where were you, Senator Corker, the last 8 years when the President Obama signed trillions of dollars of new deficit spending in spending bills? I mean, look, these guys all of a sudden become deficit hawks when it's your money. When it's your money, oh, we have to find pay-fors. But when they just want to, letting you keep your money, but if they want to spend, you don't hear any of this.
Yeah, and that is a huge problem up on Capitol Hill, and that's
absolutely.
And because I understand the whole reconciliation rules, and I understand why they had to come up with a $4.1 trillion budget blueprint, because they needed to get these tax reforms in. But nobody, and I mean nobody, of any political party is talking about fiscal restraint. And and I hear this from liberals and even some of the Bob Corker type Republicans who say, well, if you cut back on government spending, you're going to harm the economy. And I've always said, if you can't cut back on government spending without harming your economy, that is the surest sign that your government is too dang big.
And also, we know history is a terrible thing because we can actually look back and see what happens. The whole idea of spending toward prosperity. What did President Obama do for 8 years?
Yep.
What about all the TARP spending and all the investment in the economy? It all failed. We had 1.8, 1.9 growth when we had growth in those 8 years. The political class, left and right, somehow want us to believe that economic growth is impossible. And I disagree. I think our natural state, especially as Americans, is growth, is expansion, is to be innovative. And this idea that the new normal is 1.8% nonsense. I believe that with this tax bill, coupled with regulatory rollback, remember, this administration already is rolling back regulations, not allowing for new regulations, that has resulted in 3.3% growth last month. So you couple regulatory reform with tax reform, and bring me back in a year. I'm predicting at least 3.5% growth moving forward.
No, I concur too. And you know what? It bears pointing out, folks. He's talking about Barack Obama and his vision, saying that America's best days are behind us. The best we can do is 1.8 to 2% growth. Now, look, I got to say, Jerry, I believe that simple-minded, weak-minded leftists, that the best they can come up with is 1.8, 2% growth. But free enterprise, free thinkers, prosperity-minded individuals, in short, Americans can come up with a lot better.
Right.
Jerry Rogers, everybody. He's vice president at the Institute for Liberty. Last thing before we let you go, as far as the overall package looks, do you think they're going to get this done before Christmas? Will this actually be a Christmas present if you were a betting man? What do you think?
I'm a despairing optimist. I believe, yes, it gets done before Christmas, and we're going to go into the new year anticipating greater growth, better wages. The whole economy will be better off.
All right. Jerry Rogers, everybody. Merry Christmas, sir. Thanks for being here on the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide.
Thank you.
That is going to do it for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide here on the Vida Television Network. Get in touch with the program. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, go to chrissalcedo.com. Right there, chrissalcedo.com. You can leave a voicemail. You can leave an email. Either way, just get in touch with the program and let your voice be heard. Or you can get instantaneous feedback from the show at any time at Chris Salcedo TX, at ChrisSalcedoTX, as in Texas, the freest state in the union. You know, I should have brought up with Jerry, I should have brought up the fact that some of these high-taxed liberal states are no longer going to be off the hook. If this goes through, if this gets signed into law, this tax reform bill, these high-tax states, the progressives who run those states into the ground, will no longer be able to utilize we here in conservative states with low taxation as a backstop to subsidize their exorbitant taxation. Anyway, that just popped into my head as we were saying goodbye. Have a great night, everybody. Glad you've tuned in here for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide. We'll see you tomorrow night here on the Vida Television Network.